Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's workshop on maximizing climate opportunities for your business. This afternoon, we've got 30 minutes of conversation with three exciting entrepreneurs we're going to hear from. We're going to give a bit of background about their experiences and why they're so engaged with this current green revolution that we're going through, not just in Scotland, but globally. Allow me to pass over to each of them to briefly introduce themselves. Faisal.
Hi everyone, I'm Faisal Ghani, founder and CEO of SolarisKIT. We're bringing to market the world's first flat packable solar thermal collector specifically for the Global South.
Fantastic. Joanna.
Good afternoon. My name is Joanna Allen. I am the client director at Reshape Technology. We're a purpose-driven company that's looking to help communities and individuals understand, measure, and reduce their carbon impact through various technologies.
Thanks, Joe. Lydia.
Good afternoon. My name is Lidia Krzynowek, and I am a business development director for a company called Carbogenics. We are Edinburgh-based startup, and we convert difficult to process paper waste like coffee cups, cardboard, paper sludge into a carbon additive that enhances bioprocesses and sequesters carbon.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you. So three fascinating companies, and we're going to get into some questions and start a debate, but allow me to set the scene for a couple of minutes just before we start. First of all, this is highly relevant just now. I know we have the key issues of Brexit and the COVID crisis that we're going through just now, but I just want to reassure everyone that we're making good, strong progress towards our environmental objectives. I was brought up in the era where the active debate was whether we pumped our sewage sludge 25 meters or 50 meters from shore. And we've gone from zero levels of recycling through to the levels we have now. So there is significant progress being made. And actually, I feel we're in a second wave right now of environmental awareness and progression going on in the country, not just in Scotland, but also globally. We're actively working with key problem owners, whether it be corporate such as Unilever or major banks, or cities such as Edinburgh and Glasgow, taking real responsibility in establishing climate targets for themselves and attempting to be even climate neutral by 2030. This creates real opportunities for small and large businesses to engage in a proactive way. Of course, the evidence is fantastic that if you are an environmental business or your business transforms to be more sustainably aware, there are opportunities for you. Not only can you lower your costs through energy efficiency, but you can access new markets both here and abroad. And there's lots of evidence to show that you can export more effectively and also that you will attract and retain staff more effectively as well. So in effect, there is never a better time to change, as most demonstrated by our three businesses here today. The awareness is never more than it has, despite the noise going on right now with these world events. And of course, we're hosting COP this year in 2021. So allow me to start with the first question for today, which I'm going to ask Faisal first. So Faisal, you've obviously started your business, you're growing really successfully. What would you say to those businesses, those organizations that perhaps haven't fully engaged in the current environmental revolution that's going on and aren't putting sustainability at the heart of their business? What advice would you give to them to get more involved?
So I think all business leaders need to accept the fact that the world is changing, and so too are the needs and wants of the market. I actually recently read a report which stated that a lot of millennials now, 40% of them responded stating that businesses' purpose needs to be to improve society. And another report which stated that 88% of millennials only wanted to work for companies that had a strong work lifestyle integration. So today's market's increasingly seeking social and environmentally conscious businesses and rejecting the old notion that businesses are just there to make money. I also think that businesses that aren't mission-led or have a very strong environmental purpose will miss a trick in attracting the talent of tomorrow's workforce, because that's just such an important requirement for millennials and the future workforce.
Thanks, Faisal. So making money is still important, Joanna, isn't it?
Yes, it is, but I think organizations increasingly are about who works with them. And I'd echo both the point that yourself and Faisal said around, we know younger people are looking at an organization holistically, and bringing their values to the table. So if you want that enthusiasm that we all know you get, and sort of from the younger members of staff, it really can be quite infectious, and actually will be a differentiator, I think, in the longer term. It also sort of brings to mind that if you're not actually looking at climate change, you're maybe not looking at the reality of the world around you, and adaptation is fundamental in businesses sustaining themselves longer term. I think it's one of the quotes is often confused with Darwin, that it's not the strongest of the species that survive, it's the ones that adapt the quickest. And that's true of business as well.
I think we can do a lot, Joanna, to sort of simplify this. I hear words like mitigation and adaptation, and I know people find it quite challenging to understand where to start. I mean, Lydia, how would you encourage businesses to engage in this revolution?
Well, I think business is simple, yes. Business is you produce something for less than you can sell it, yes. So in our case, we looked at waste as one of the resources to produce our product from, and I think there was obviously that was driven with the climate agenda, but also mainly it was driven by to have our production costs reduced significantly, and also feel like there's enough of the resources out there already going to be burned or landfilled, and we could make a good use of this. And although it might resonate very much with our client base, they obviously want to know how much money they can ultimately make on our product. So I think these two agendas are still very important for the businesses. I don't think you can succeed only with the environmental agenda in the business. You ultimately have to offer a product that makes it different for the client.
That's right. So you're strong in business, but you're also strong in environmental principles and an environmental method, which is giving you that advantage, because each of you are in an environmental business, and you are creating demand in your own way, and creating business opportunities. But in your own sectors, which are totally different, you have had to compete with an existing business model, and in some ways you are out competing them and competing them. So how are you doing that? How are you offering a service which is different, which is more effective than your existing competition? Faisal, we'll start with you.
So SolarisKIT's working in the decarbonization of heat space. So we're looking at how solar thermal technology, where we convert sunlight directly into heat, could be used to save our customers money, but obviously also reduce carbon emissions. And this is a space that hasn't experienced a great deal of innovation for probably the last century, I would say. And there was a growing need for this technology in the global south, so the developing and emerging economies, which are typically very, very sunny. The penetration of these technologies has been historically very, very low. And that's chiefly because the technology hasn't been innovated in a long time, and it's primarily served the needs of more wealthy and industrialized economies. And so it was a clear gap that we needed new products specifically for this very vast and new market. And so we took a very pragmatic approach. We realized that obviously access to capital was one of the main problems, but also capacity in a lot of these regions. So there wasn't the right skills to install this technology. It wasn't around. And so what we needed was a very, very simple, intuitive solution to this problem, which kind of led to this development of this really easy to assemble, build it yourself, very intuitive solution, which basically just turns a resource which we're all quite familiar with, maybe less so in Scotland, that's the sun, and turning that into some useful energy, say for example in Africa, which we're really targeting. So yeah, it's primarily what we're working on.
So it was quite a portable business model as well, not just for Scotland. And yes, we do get sun in Scotland sometimes.
Yes, we do. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's a portable model. Joanna, what about yourself? I mean, obviously there's a lot of competition in your area. How are you out competing them? How are you growing your environmental business?
Well, I guess sort of in terms of carbon measurement, it's kind of been around for a while, but more in the company zone. So, companies have had to start reporting their carbon emissions, looking at their business models, and sort of starting to have to do some mandatory reporting in the sort of public sector. The bit that hadn't been touched is really the individual. So, where we've seen a lot of traction and good success is probably in that understanding more and education pace, where you're then helping people actually understand their personal impact. And where this could really get quite exciting is then moving out into the communities. So, you know, accompanying with, you know, all of us have heard of climate change. We're increasingly seeing the impact on a daily basis. You know, there's a lot of good information sharing and richer resources being developed around this. But as an individual, most people still don't understand their personal impact and importantly, how to change it. So there's really good communities coming together. I would say the ecosystem in Scotland is growing at a phenomenal rate, probably accelerated by, you know, Scotland being the first country in the world to declare a climate emergency. All of these things have added a really good enthusiasm to sort of businesses to sort of take this forward. And that's really where we can then help bridge the people and company gap, because we're sort of starting to work together. You know, quite often we like to call ourselves the Fitbit for the planet, where we're basically kind of with you on a daily basis, but kind of helping you understand more and kind of basically make small changes. And there's some things people won't be able to change overnight, but understanding where you are making the biggest impact and then being able to work at those changes is really where we see ourselves kind of making a difference.
Just a brief follow-up. I mean, where are you seeing most demand? Where are you seeing the most demand for your service on climate measurement? And where is the area that you think there should be more demand, but simply it's a bit sleepy just now and it's not being aware?
Yeah. So the most demand we're seeing is really from the sort of public sector, because obviously the kind of direct impact of the Scottish Government making that declaration is each of the local authorities needs to have action plans to then really do something. And within those action plans, there's a really neat spot for us to operate. You know, in the way that excitement always generates more excitement, equally Scottish businesses are starting to sort of step into this place. And you'll see sort of energy, transport, where they've also been trying to mitigate their emissions for a longer time. You know, the knowledge of it is there, so it's a quicker conversation to come to the table. It would be really nice for us, and probably I'd like to see more happening in the financial sector, and I'd like to see more happening in probably traditionally what are the service sectors of the UK, because that's really, you know, and whether that's marketing, consultancy, you know, those kind of things that are prolific across organizations. And I think the interest is there. It's just legwork now for us to cover them all.
Absolutely. Lidia, you're working in a really traditional industry. You're working with agriculture, you're working with farmers. Massive change going on with Brexit, etc. I mean, chaotic, many would say. But you've also got many other traditional models for dealing with some of the waste products. How are you managing to get yourself across your business, this new approach, this more sustainable approach, and allowing you to get traction in your market?
Yeah, ultimately, well, our clients are mainly large or small biogas plants. So there are already people who are doing a great deal to support the green agenda. People who daily collect thousands of tons of food waste and convert them into gas that you can heat the flats and so on. So I don't think there is a need to convince them they made their business out of literature, but they are kind of a almost hidden heroes, I would say, waste management people. So they don't need to be convinced that what they are doing is serving a good purpose. And the only thing we need to convince them is that our product ultimately, when added to their biogas plants, will help them to do it even better. And ultimately that our product also, when deposited into the soils, it's safe. It can help them to fertilize the soils, bringing the land to the state it should be, and sequester carbon for hundreds and thousands of years. So these messages do resonate with the biogas industry, definitely. At the moment, they are using various chemicals to get the process on track. So they are absolutely open to try something new. I was very surprised. And you have to say, those are people who are allowing you to use their £1 million worth of assets to trial an innovative product in it. So if they are not on board, who is? So I think I would say here, if possible, is really let's think and let's remember about our waste management services, not only people to collect your bins, but people who are really work very hard on the front line and often are not very appreciated.
Absolutely. Lidia, I mean, which country or which area of the world do you look to and go, gosh, if Scotland or the UK could only be like that. Is there a region that you think that this one that we should emulate and follow? Because this is a global problem, and I feel often we deal with it in such a small and localized challenge. So where can we learn from?
Well, obviously, Scotland made a great commitment with the all the food waste that is collected in Scotland now has to go into the anaerobic digestion. Nothing can be landfilled. We were the first in UK to do that, put this regs, which definitely helped.
So we're the best in the world, Lydia. We're okay. Can we not learn from anyone else?
No, we are the best, I would say, but people can learn from us. But if I have to look somewhere else, yes, I would say Germany and Norway. They really, what I really like about, they start to look at this problem in a much holistic way. As Joanna used this word, I like this way. So they look circularly. So it's not only your product, your business, but how it can network, how it can grow, and how it can link with other businesses. So they look more at the whole idea waste management as resource, what is at the end, how can we get the value, squeeze the value in every single point when this resource is available.
I'm happy for us to be seen as the best, Lydia. We don't have to search. Joe, Faisal, what do you think? Is there somewhere that you draw inspiration from globally?
So in the decarbonisation of heat, I think Sweden and Denmark are definitely the leaders in this space. I think they adapted very well to the changing energy market in the 70s when there was the oil crisis. These two countries were heavily dependent on oil at the time, and they realized that for security of supply reasons, we better just isolate ourselves from this energy need. So let's shift to renewables. And so since then, they've really led the way in decarbonizing heat with solar and just having correct carbon taxes in place as well to stimulate this market.
Absolutely. The technology is there. It's just the policies right to allow the transfer. What do you think, Joe?
So I'd have to echo as well, the Nordics definitely are a space when it comes to that sort of green agenda. You know, interestingly, because of what we do with Reshape also has the technology element and behavior change, there's probably more of a look to the States for where that's been done well and effectively. And you know, that's really the exciting area and the exciting discussions we're having at the minute is how do we nudge people along, keep them engaged, but not nag, because at the end of the day, it can look quite negative when you kind of get a number that you're like, oh God, how do I change it? So, you know, keeping somebody with you on the journey is a big part of what we need to make sure we do. And some of the apps and some of the technology coming out of the States is really exciting with that gamification, keeping you going. You know, I think Duolingo had me kind of desperately wanting to be, you know, the most badged Spanish speaker. And, you know, as a result, I was getting up every morning, making sure I kept my streaks and stuff like that. So, you know, they're clever little tricks to help you kind of go along.
Going on the journey, as you said, Joe. I mean, so clearly we have a case that each of you have received support from regionally and nationally from agencies and other organizations that have helped you in a way. It would be good to give a chance to have a shout out to these guys now as well, but also not to rest on our laurels. There is a huge transformation that needs to happen if we're going to encourage more existing and traditional low carbon businesses to accelerate. So what more could the government and could civic society do to enable this transition, while at the same time giving a shout out to those who've helped you on your way? Joe, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have to say from a Reshape technology point of view, we have to say a massive thank you. Our support has really come from the public sector, having sort of awarded the contract off the back of a CivTech Challenge, which is sort of the digital innovation arm of the Scottish Government. That's really accelerated us into getting the product developed and up and running. And Glasgow City Council and the team there have been integral in really helping us get through early user trials and sort of the introductions and the network and the ecosystem around Glasgow has been really exciting. You know, I've been having great conversations with some individuals about the Climate Clyde forest and ideas around increasing canopy cover in towns and also looking at migration routes, you know, really innovative stuff that kind of trying to be at the forefront of these changes. So, you know, we've been very lucky in that sense. I'd probably say UK-wide, there's probably more of a gap and more could be done. But I'd really like to see probably more collaboration in the space, because I think that could really help, especially with, you know, things coming up. And I know TEDx Glasgow are planning to sort of do a lot more promotion. So the building blocks are there. We've just got to bring the Lego set together.
Right. Okay. So you really feel it's just a case of bringing what we've existed and got together rather than developing new initiatives. It's just better networking and better communication.
Yeah.
Okay. Lidia, Faisal, what do you think?
So we have lots of people to thank, to be honest, to be part of our journey. So we are completely non-dilutive funding at the moment. So I definitely have to thank Converge and the Edinburgh Centre for Carbon Innovation, who backed us when we were complete unknown variables and wild cards, I think. They really believed in what we were doing. But then since then, Innovate UK, the Royal Society of Edinburgh, Scottish Enterprise, all of them have provided us funding and a huge amount of support to help us to get to where we are. So I have to say a big thank you to all of them, and Scottish Edge as well. I shouldn't forget about Scottish Edge. So thank you, Scottish Edge. I think in terms of what's required to stimulate this area, I think we definitely need to rethink our carbon tax in the UK. The countries which I previously mentioned, such as Sweden, their carbon tax is something like 5 times what ours is at the moment. And that's had a huge impact on the industry. I think we definitely need to move past the point where we think a carbon tax is just going to stifle the economy. It's going to just stimulate it, especially with everything that's required to be done. It's going to create jobs. It's going to create new industries that we don't even think exist. And it's going to excite young people as well. I also think that we need an enormous shift in the way policy is structured as well. I think what's very clear is the frustration younger people have in the political system. And I think that's because you know, the younger generation do not have enough of a say to shape policy and the political change makers. And so I think we do need to restructure how we make decisions and get the future generations more on board to shape policies which will ultimately affect them.
Do you have an idea how we would do that, Faisal? How would we get young people more involved in the policy?
I have no idea, Ed. I have no idea. But I don't know if we can get representatives from the community to actually have more of a say at parliamentary meetings, if there needs to be some kind of more structured approach to implementing that. But I think something definitely needs to change. And I think this is another area where Scotland could really lead the world in, because we do have a very progressive government.
I know the Climate 2050 group has had some great thinking, including getting someone under 30 on every board to at least have a young person's voice rather than just the old white
School
men.
kids seem to be leading the way on this, all right? So,
Joanna, you were looking frisky there. Do you have something to say on that?
Well, it's interesting. So I think some of this does go back to that connecting the dots, because, you know, there are a lot of the councils have youth councils, which will be younger people that are sort of coming through. But, you know, it's knitting all these together, because I think, you know, together they'll make a bigger difference and more noise. But I just think a lot of it's not getting the exposure. And, you know, there is always that kind of, I think if you look at the SNPs, a lot of them are a hell of a lot younger. You know, bless them, than their counterparts down in Westminster. So we're making inroads, but we're definitely not there. I would agree. And the carbon tax, I would agree with as well.
Certainly is a stronger youth voice in the Scottish Parliament than the UK Parliament. Lydia.
I think it's when Faisal said it, I think it's the first tax anyone will be excited about, you know, because, you know, as carbon tax. So we definitely would be very excited about as a company, because that's what we try to do, sequester carbon. So it would be a beautiful revenue stream, which we all like. I was smiling at Faisal, because when he named all of the people who helped him, we have a very similar list. So I will not repeat this list. So it is a Scottish enterprise, Edinburgh Centre for Climate Innovation, and obviously Converge and Scottish Edge, and Scottish Enterprise. So we have a very similar, it means that there is quite a vibrant kind of entrepreneurial ecosystem out there. And what was a surprise for me is when our latest fundraising activities, looking for the investors, the private investors and the venture capital is now also very much focused on looking for businesses that will not only make money, but also have a very strong kind of environmental mission and social mission involved in them. So they clicked onto that. So that's a great hope. And on the other end, and it was very interesting for me to see at the recent job fair at Edinburgh University, we have been a very popular stand because we had this big, beautiful green flower on our banner. And every single student that came up to us said, oh, we want to work for someone who wants to do something for the planet, you know, and we were like, oh my God, can we do it? Can we do it? Can we not disappoint them, please? So great mission for us.
Certainly attracting and retaining staff is a fantastic benefit of being so passionate about the environment. Guys, we're going into the last 3 or 4 minutes. I keep hearing about this massive silent majority, though we say about it's the same people supporting organizations and helping businesses to start and grow. But we need everyone to transform to enable and to support the protection of the planet. We have COP this year. It's supposed to be a business-friendly COP from the UK government coming forward. Briefly, in 1 minute each, what would be your wish for this COP? What would be the outcome you would like to have from this COP? Who wants to start?
I'll just say really quickly, climate change is an international problem. And so I think what would be ideal is if we can agree on an internationally accepted carbon tax. You know, it's just so disjointed at the moment. I know it's going to be very, very difficult to implement. And so there will have to be some kind of system that takes into account the various levels of, you know, economic status of countries. But I do think we need an internationally accepted value for carbon tax at the moment. You know, having countries within the EU where it varies by 5 times, it just doesn't make sense. Where, you know, and we have to accept the fact that it is the best economic instrument that we know now to stimulate the change required to tackle this problem.
Thanks. Joe?
I really, really hope it's a success. I think there's a fantastic opportunity for Scotland with this happening in Glasgow. And I really, really hope that it stimulates and brings to life a lot of the great initiatives that we have. It would be a real shame if it became a group of people who flew in, made some decisions and left again. So, you know, I'm really keen that this actually accelerates what we're doing in Scotland and becomes a showcase for a lot of the phenomenal companies like present company. You know, it's a good opportunity for us, and it would be, I really hope we will make the most of it.
Lydia, what do you expect from
I think it's going to be a great opportunity for networking for businesses like that, for building new collaborations, getting all of these other entrepreneurs. We don't know half of the, you know, half is a little, but we don't know what is happening really in small pockets around the world. So if this kind of events can bring us together so we can inspire each other and sign great collaboration deals and start working together, that would be a great outcome for me.
Well, having been to several COPs, it's a complete mess, but the reality is what an opportunity for small and large businesses to look at international opportunities and market opportunities, because it is a global problem and we need to share that your ideas, your technologies, your business models, not just in Scotland, but globally if we're going to make this happen. Guys, thank you so much for your time. I'm just going to quickly round off to say that I'm delighted to have been involved with you for the last 3 or 4 years as well, and delighted to see you working so well. If you want to continue the Q&A, we're now going online live, so please come and join us and continue the conversation. We'll get into carbon tax, we'll get into what support is most needed in Scotland and how we can engage now in where we are in our new Brexit model going forward. So thank you for all your time. And goodbye from all of us.